All right, everyone. Thank you for joining in today on Monk on the Mountain podcast. I am super excited today to bring to you the first guest on our show here, the first monk who is coming down off of the mountain to share their experience of enlightenment and evolution with you, Todd Perilmuter, the founder of eastwesticism.org, creator of Aloneness to Oneness documentary. You can find that on YouTube. And I just want to give an extremely warm welcome and a deep gratitude to Todd here for joining us today. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you so much, Sean, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we spoke briefly, just before this podcast to kind of just talk about what we do. And, listening to your documentary was, man, I just wish everybody in the world could hear this information. I wish that children could listen to the insight and the mentality that you've gained in your journey, and you sharing that is just such an honor and a privilege for anyone who comes across that work. So I wanted to ask you if you could introduce yourself and kind of tell a little bit about your story.
Definitely. I was very much, a product of my generation, suburban American upbringing, very typical. Grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. And just, the culture really shapes each and every one of us. Sometimes it's people and sometimes it's our society. And for me, I grew up in this time when, born in 83, I was of this generation that said, if you have trouble paying attention in class, you might have this new condition called ADD instead of just being like a normal kid used to be. And so I was put on this ADD medication. I was procrastinating a lot, couldn't focus, and I thought I saw this book on my brother's bookshelf called The Power of Now, and I thought it was how to stop procrastinating and get stuff done right now. And it was really my opening into spirituality, because if anyone's read the book knows it's about being present and not really about procrastination, but it actually does help with procrastination. Helped me immensely. And I was able to get off the ADD medicine, and that was like my dipping my toes in spirituality by mistake, by accident. And
Right.
so after that, I moved to New York, and I was working as a ad man, and I was writing commercials, and I was really loving it. And it was just very lively time in my life, partying all the time, drinking all the time, but I was stressed without knowing I was stressed. And I think a lot of people experience this. We kind of avoid our stress and we ignore it and we look away, and we don't know why we're maybe drinking really bad, like too much, or not having the healthiest, habits. And that was what I was doing. Like, I didn't know why I needed to see a chiropractor and a massage therapist and an acupuncturist every single week just so my back wouldn't go out. But I didn't know it was stress, but it was 100% stress. And when a coworker committed suicide is really when like the light bulb went off.
Wow.
And so it was really that moment when I was like, I need to figure out what life is really all about. I was, really deeply moved by that. And we were in the same place in life. He actually was a little older than me, and he had kind of what I was working towards. And he seemed like very happy guy. And as did kind of everyone I worked with. But then you look around and you see everyone's kind of doing the same thing, not every work function is a drinking function, and every, it's just, you're in New York, right? The kind of.
I'm actually in Philadelphia.
Is that right? Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very similar.
Great.
Not the same, obviously, but major city, a lot of the same demographics, the same income structures, same jobs.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, we all just kind of do what we do to get by. And I decided pretty soon after that I walked in and I gave in my resignation, and I took a one-way ticket to India. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. And I just wanted to learn about everything spiritual that we weren't being told, what information and knowledge and wisdom was out there. So I lived at several ashrams and I lived at several Buddhist monasteries. And I even flew to South America and lived with different shamans. And I just wanted to get this wisdom that they don't really teach in America yet. And that was my life education, if you will. And I was really drawn to it. And then the difference in my life was unbelievable. I don't drink anymore, and I don't, my focus, I can sit still and focus on my breath for hours, which
Yeah.
would have I never thought possible. And my back pain is gone completely. And once I learned all these different spirituality techniques, I went into a forest for 50 days, kind of inspired by the Buddha and Jesus, who spent 40 days in the wilderness, and Buddha sat under a tree for 49 days. And I just meditated. And it was the greatest and the toughest experience of my life, but
Wow.
the most profound.
Wow, that is so incredible. And it's funny to me, when people are seeking spirituality and seeking evolution, it's like nowadays it seems like all of the information is like contained in the memes and social media. But at the surface level of the meme, it's missing the depth of the transformation. Like the words and the concepts are there. And to like an enlightened person, you can see the depth of the message. But what you did was the old journey. You took the old ways, and the amount of courage that it takes and the amount of, dedication to your spiritual growth is so profound to have went that route. On your Instagram, it says join the journey of 9 years in 35 countries, living with 18 shamans, monks, and gurus. I mean, if that doesn't wake you up, you might as well try in the next lifetime, you know? So the part about going into the forest and meditating, could you tell me if you had, or could you, I know you did, could you share a profound spiritual experience that you had? Maybe something that would be unbelievable to an uninitiated person, but for a seeker would be inspiring.
Yes. Well, I had many, obviously.
Right.
Not much else to do except go into the deepest parts of yourself. But there were, I had actually a few near death experiences. And these are always everyone, I think, who has had anything like that, even you're almost hit by a bus, even just little things that can happen in your day that
Like a
can
wake up
just make
call.
you, yeah, make you really just appreciate every moment and be flooded with gratitude. And so I was foraging for food, and there's these areas where if you have to get kind of high up, or the deer have already eaten all these
Like the berries.
yeah, they're called fiddleheads on ferns that
Okay.
are very delicious. The little curls at the tip that haven't unfurled yet, that you can boil in there, the best thing you can find sometimes in the forest. And so
Mm.
I was kind of high up. um the trail was at the top of a cliff, and I was trying to get just below the trail these fiddleheads, and the ground just gave out underneath me, and I fell down this cliff. But I landed feet first in about 3 feet of water that really saved my life. And I had like
Wow.
no scratches or bruises. I tumbled down. I mean, I was just somersaulting, and it was just like a miracle. I'm just standing, probably 20 meters below, and just wondering what's where my bone is sticking out of. But
Wow.
it was just a miracle. And when these moments are just so powerful. So that was one of these moments where, nothing matters except just all that remains is gratitude and trust in the universe. I mean, there's no point of any kind of worries or doubts when you're just grateful to be alive. And we always have that inside of us, but we always lose that to our daily grind. And it was a very powerful experience. And then I don't, I take like whatever happens when you die. My approach is I don't know, but it can't be that bad because it's it's part of the miracle of life, and every living being gets to go on that last great uncharted journey. And I kind of had this realization in meditation later that day that you're never born and you never die, and there's just change, and beginnings and endings are like Hollywood movies. They have a beginning and end, but in reality something happened before that movie and something will happen after they rolled the credits in that movie, and we just kind of have this perception from Hollywood that there's these beginnings and ends, but there's just this change, and we can just totally let go of any kind of need to control, and we can still take action, but we can embrace whatever comes, is what I really learned.
I love that metaphor, that example of, movies giving us this glimpse, but it doesn't show us what happened before or after. And Hollywood and media is such an influence on our generation. I was born in the 80s as well, 87. Movies were the thing to do. The next big movie to come out, the next big star, the next big blockbuster, they have programmed us to have, that's like a lot of our expectations for life, and it's set a lot of unrealistic expectations, and very much so about the death process. And I love that. I love your approach and your perspective about how you're just like, listen, I don't know, but I know that all of this is beautiful, and that's a part of it. So that's beautiful too. A lot of times I think that people who get really deep in their spiritual awakening start to take on beliefs, and it's like almost like regressing. It's like they've learned so much and come to such awareness that now they have strong beliefs about things, but based on their experience. And it's a slippery slope, because with the journey of enlightenment, you do achieve knowing, you do achieve high levels of awareness and new states of being. I always refer to it as the feeling state or the being state. So when I teach meditations, or I work with people at a spiritual level, I get them to get focused on their being state, their feeling state. Like right now, me and you and I, we are in a complete calm, an awareness, an awakeness, and our energy is like the stillness of a pond. And that is like the focus of spiritual enlightenment, is to come back to the stillness, and come back to being the pond. So that way, when you experience the ripples, when you experience the waves, you can enjoy them, and you can ride them, and you can know them, and you could return back to the stillness. And I think that a lot of people in the world are just like rippling and waving, and they forgot that they're the stillness. They get caught up on these waves, they get caught up in the jobs, they get caught up in the relationships. And I love how you said you can still take action, in your life. You can still be pursuing enlightenment and pursuing mastery of self, but still take action within your life. A huge part of our life, is to create the experiences that we want to experience. I always bring it back to our souls are working on being a more self-realized version of itself. It's all of our beautiful journey is about learning more about what we are as a consciousness, and at what the world is, and our relationship to the world. And it's so important as we go through our journeys to look at everything like that, to look at everything like it is God. So I am God, you are God. All of this technology is God. All of the weather and the sun and all of it, it's all God. It's all the universe. It's all made of the same material, the immaterial, the non physical. So bridging that gap just to bring it back, bridging that gap and just being like, listen, I don't know what happens, but it's got to be beautiful. That's like a mantra for your whole life. Like, I don't know what's going to happen tonight, but it's going to be beautiful. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but it's going to be beautiful. And I don't know what's going to happen during death, but it's going to be beautiful. And just having that alignment of self and realization is it could heal the entire world. Just that alone. And I think that you would agree in that, you know, spiritual concepts, the real powerful stuff is really simple. It's extremely natural. And when you come into it, it's like, man, I like it was here the whole time. It was here the whole time.
Yeah, it really is. It really is just kind of stripping away the unimportant stuff and the conditioning. And it's like you said about the media. They're really taking advantage of these mirror neurons in our brain, that we see someone on a screen experience something very chaotic, and we feel as if we're having that experience,
Right.
and it really goes deep into our psyche. And it can take a long time to kind of undo that. And what I'm trying to do is, with this podcast and my book and my which will be coming out later, and just healing people, is I recognize people can't take 9 years off always.
Mhm.
So, but I do believe that what I've learned can help people, so they don't need to. My current daily practice is meditating twice a day and spending some time to uncondition my mind from whatever happened yesterday or whatever happened earlier in the day. And and that really is the key, is just any kind of daily practice that really lets you process everything fully, when we can get rid of distractions, and we can feel through what we're feeling without resistance.
Yeah.
Everybody can have this birthright, really, this peace and profound, overwhelming beauty, and just love bursting through every cell in your body.
Yeah. And I've had that experience too. I've spoken about it before and I've guided people to it. That experience of having this ecstatic love energy flow through you. Could you tell me a little bit about what you do with like clients or seekers that come to you? What is like the method that you use to catch them up? Because like you said, I love that you mentioned mirror neurons. I want more of that on my show, talking about the science behind it, and it's beautiful how science is slowly, but it is catching up to consciousness, and quantum physics is the science of consciousness, and that the part about mirror neurons, it also helps us help others because what happens is, let's say, I mean, our situation, like I've been in my spiritual ascension path for over a decade now. For me, it started when I was very young, but then I had fallen out of it when my dad passed away. And then I came back to it very strong. And then it's been, onward and upward ever since I was like 22 years old. But now when I meet people and they're just starting their journey, sometimes I don't remember the fact that I've put in over 10 years of dedication, so many hours and hours of meditation, of dream work, of energy work, of clearing, of karmic cleansing. And anybody who listens to this, everything that I just mentioned, there's actual techniques, actual processes involved in this, and it's all healing. It's all empowering and all extremely wonderful. And what I try to do is give them the sense of self that I have, right? Like I can't give them the 10 years. Like we can't give them the journey that we went on, but we can give them the frequency of being that we are in. And in their mirror experience, the reflective perspective, they can then experience that within themselves. And maybe they ground it into their being, into their consciousness. Maybe they don't. But in the presence of a master or an ascending master, like I don't know where to put us on the scale, really. You know what I mean? Like if we were born in like 2000, 3000 years ago, maybe they call us masters. Nowadays, if we call ourselves masters, they'll call us jackasses. So like where are we on the scale? I don't know. But 10 years of discipline in any regard, you're gonna achieve levels of mastery within that. So how do you bring the people that you work with, how do you bring them up to your level? What do you do for them?
That's a great question. I think first and foremost, it's really I try to create a energy of love. I mean, I don't try. It's just it surrounds the whole situation. I'm
Yep.
here for them,
I know
and
exactly what you mean.
it's it's the most healing thing I can do for anybody is and it just happens automatically because there's no agenda besides caring for this person
Yeah.
and whatever they've gone through. And I always say no one's um had perfect parents. Nobody's had everyone gets sick and old, so we all have trauma. And love and showing attention and being there for people is magic and healing in itself. And then I describe what I do as my best analogy is like learning to play basketball. There's you learn the rules, but you have to practice, and that's how you become good. And so I try to teach people about mindfulness and what being present is, and how how meditation helps, and kind of what is causing their suffering, and what can heal their suffering. And that's kind of like the rules of the game. And then any kind of practice, there's many different techniques, but ultimately I think meditation is just unrivaled. It's the physical training, it's the practice, and it's how you can experience the philosophies firsthand, so you can really internalize it on a deep level. And the daily practice of that, we all read a book that may really inspire us or change our lives, but a few years later we don't really remember much of that book, no matter how great. And so the daily practice is the daily reminder, and it's so essential for the success I've seen in people to kind of guide their lives towards a peaceful, calmer, happier, more joyful one. And so those are the main things. So we look at the kind of the how, why, and what, and then the practice.
Yeah. So basically, you receive them, you find out what it is that's ailing them, the patterns in their mind, and then you shine love on it. So you create the love for their experience. And then they're able to, for the first time, through that lens, see their situation and see what they're involved with from a place of love. And then the pathway to their healing is then shown to them. And maybe you speak it to them because of the insight and the intuition that flows through both of you. I do the same work. So I know what it's like to get that intuition download based on a person's energy and what the experience you're both having is, and then to offer them the path toward healing. I love it. And obviously, like, I mean, it is the way. It
Yeah,
is the
it
way
is.
for those of us that are healers. And even I have 2 points I want to say. It's crazy. It's both in my mind. I'll stick to one first. Modern psychology, the goal of modern psychology is to accomplish this, what we are doing. But it's too science based. It's too philosophy, like rigid. It's too rigid, where everything has to be put in boxes and identified. But the reality is that nothing is truly identifiable. We get lost in the definitions of things and we lose our ability to experience them. And that also translates into our thoughts and our experiences. When we define them, we're losing our ability to experience the depth of them and to heal and transmute them. So what I do with people I work with and in my meditation and my philosophy, I always refer to it like my basketball reference is like I call it the spiritual gym. So it's like if you want to be in shape, if you want to be fit, you have to hit the gym all the time. And if you don't go to the gym, if you don't eat right, like your body's going to reflect that. But if you go to the gym all the time, you're consistent, like your body's going to transform and you're going to have more energy and you're going to be able to do things with your body and have longevity. And in the spiritual transition to that is when you have these glimpses of clarity and you have these glimpses of your internal power and enlightenment, the universe is going to present you thousands and thousands of experiences to hit the spiritual gym. Stuff's going to come across your way, and you have the option whether to use the same pattern of thinking that you've used before throughout your whole life to look at it, or you're going to use your new pattern. You're going to hit the spiritual gym in that moment, and you're going to look at it with love. You're going to look at it with acceptance and not define it, but experience it. And every time that you have an opportunity to do this and you pull it off, it's like you level up because now you're creating new neural pathways in your mind physically for your brain to travel down and your emotional chemistry and your physical chemistry to reenact that at future events that are similar, and you're breaking patterns that have put you into a mental deficit or into an emotional deficit and into depression just gets sprung up on us nowadays. We get depressed over everything, and it's an ailment that plagues our entire culture. But the fix, the cure, isn't in a bottle. It's not on someone's couch. It's in your meditation. It's in your being state, your feeling state of love, being able to create the energy of love within yourself. And that gift right there is one of the things that I focus a lot, but most of my training with people on is to get them to be able to create love within themselves. So that way that becomes a tool in their toolkit. It's really easy for us to experience fear or resistance or anger. Like we have those on the fly. We can pull fear, anger, rage out, no problem. But pulling love out, choosing to create love. I think love is very intentional. You create love intentionally. The other emotions, the negative emotions, are more reactionary. So they just come out, like we're not really thinking about how we're about to feel or what we're going to project. It just naturally comes out of us. But when you choose to experience love, you're choosing to embody an energetic frequency. You're focusing on your heart center. You're feeling the lightness. Like I can feel it in myself right now, just referring to it and feeling it in my being state. And that gift, that natural gift is there for everyone. And I love how you said before, your birthright. I always describe this as your birthright. It truly is. You don't have to be anything or anyone other than what you are to experience these wonderful gifts of self, these wonderful gifts of spirit. And I know in my heart that our society is destined to get there, uh, and that's why the work that you do is so important. It takes a village, it takes an entire community, and I just want to give you a ton of love and respect for the amount of courage that you've embodied to put yourself out there in this world, to make yourself that vulnerable, and also protected, in spirit. But the vulnerability, I know, in the human experience, to put yourself out there, to invest lots of real money into creating websites, creating programs, advertising yourself. The upkeep of that is such an honorable service. And, I just want to thank you and let you know that the work that you do, it doesn't end with the person you do it to. It transfers into every aspect of their life, and it's generating continuously and infinitely through the timeline. So, thank you for that work, Todd. And I know that you're going to do a whole lot more as we go. So, I want to ask, being that you've met with shamans and monks and gurus, have you had any experiences with the sacred plant medicines on your journey?
Yes, I have experienced transcendence with ayahuasca,
Right.
and San Pedro in South America. And both are incredibly transformative, incredibly healing. I have experienced incredible life changes from psilocybin as well. And I think that these are miracles that they exist. I mean, it really is blessings from the mother nature, all of these natural plant medicines. And it's a shame they've been stigmatized. And as long as we don't mistake I call them kind of signposts to enlightenment. They show you the way, and they show you what the potential is, our potential for this new state of being. And as long as we don't confuse that with the real thing, they are, I'm much more of a fan of these one and done medicines than these take every day for the rest of your life, but it won't cure you.
And I share that. I've also had extremely powerful transformative experiences with psilocybin combined with deep meditation.
Hmm.
It's a very personal question. It's cool if you don't want to dive into it, but do you have any recollection of any of your ayahuasca experiences that you would be willing to share to maybe inspire someone or tell them what lies beyond the veil if you were to take that route?
Absolutely. It's there's the thing with psychedelics or plant medicines is that you never know if it's your brain, the plant, or deeper reality. And I love the unknown, and I'm not afraid to live in the mystery and not knowing. But it also doesn't matter if it feels real to you, then it is real to you. And in one instance, I felt God was hugging me, and I felt like I was under a waterfall of just love crashing down on me, and it was really at the time I was probably atheist, and now I'm agnostic slash choose to choose beneficial beliefs with the humility of not knowing at the same time. And it's just like if there's another being to be grateful for and to show gratitude to and to love and feel that everything is perfectly happening the way it's supposed to, then it just de-stresses you. And there's I call it's kind of like creating your own placebo effect, right? And so it's kind of like rational. I basically grew up in Judaism, and I kind of just shed everything I was brought up in, and I kind of created it from the ground up with the most beautiful aspects of Buddhism, Hinduism, Native Americans, just and even beyond that, like
Yeah.
the hospitality of the Indians and the friendliness of the Irish, and just the environmentalism of the Native Americans,
I love
and so
that.
I just kind of created a one man culture. But um, that was the moment I kind of was just like, I don't know if there's a God, but I felt like there was a God, and it felt awesome, and I'll just I saw God, and it was I'll tell you it. There were these weird times on ayahuasca where things would happen, like multiple people would see the same thing in the ceremony, and we would discuss it later.
Incredible.
And these are kind of the impossible things that don't make any sense. But like a woman was like, I saw a woman standing over you. She was saying to this guy, and he's like, that was my aunt. She passed away, but she was there with me and she was putting her hand on me.
Yeah. Just like regular
And
conversation. That was my aunt.
just
No
like
big
just
deal.
mutual shared visions. Yeah, exactly. So a lot
Yeah.
of stuff like that that just makes you really, think there's something to it. And since it does just produce a natural molecule that is in our brain already, it does feel like it's it's definitely more than just
Hallucination.
hallucinated. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I uh I love your discernment. I love your level of discernment. I really do. And I think that all spiritual seekers should maintain their level of discernment until they're given really powerful proofs and truth. That's not to say not to have like aspects of faith and not to believe and to feel into the more, but to keep your discernment so that way you don't become confused or dilute the power of the messages that you're getting by just going off and thinking things are what they aren't, or going back into the ego, trying to identify things from the ego place. So I commend your level of discernment. That's been something that's been extremely important to me throughout my journey because, as you know, modern spiritual seekers, like, they talk about all types of crazy stuff, and like I love it, but it's like if you're claiming that you're a Palladian star seed and you haven't had like a Palladian being appear materialize before you and tell you about it, but you read it in a forum somewhere, you probably shouldn't go around telling people that. Not to say that that's not a potential reality or it's not a real thing, but it can like derail our true spiritual growth by getting attached to different concepts. And for any of you that don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. Stick to your meditation, stick to the basics. You'll get somewhere even better. I want to ode to you and share with you an experience that I had on ayahuasca, or not ayahuasca, I apologize, on psilocybin that's similar to your ayahuasca experience that, is extremely transformative to me. I had taken, before I took the psilocybin, I had the intention to learn and to grow. And I asked it to teach me, to take me to the next level, from wherever I am, I want to learn more. And I ate the mushrooms and I went into my meditation and I started having this experience. It's like behind your eyes for anybody who hasn't done this. It's like your eyes are closed and then there's a vision scape that appears before you. It's not like if you open your eyes and you try to look at the regular world is completely tripped out. As you look at things, they'll take new shapes and forms and whatnot. But behind your eyes, in your meditative state, you go into like a vision scape, a vision quest. And on this vision quest, I was what I can only describe as experiencing other dimensions of consciousness where I was flying through these beautiful colored tunnels that had this just magnificent display of changing geometric shape and color, and it was beautiful. And I was with a person right at that time, a woman that I was kind of dating, and I liked her a lot. And we bumped heads, like we bumped heads, like while we were sitting there in meditation. It was kind of unintentional, but when we bumped heads, my entire internal visionscape shifted, and all of a sudden I was in a void, in a complete void. And before me in this void was an enormous female being. And this being was like laying back, kind of like sitting back, like lounging into the void. And her skin, the lines of her skin was made of like a red bending light, like a laser light, but it bent and it took form. And I could see her abs and her breasts and her neck and her face. And but her skin was the void. But the outline was this like, bending light, and in her eyes had this like beautiful pink and rose just emanating out of her eyes, and in the very center was like this beautiful like white rose light. And she communicated to me in that moment that I wasn't going to end up with that girl. She shook her head to me and she said no. And even in that moment, my ego was like, "You don't know what you're talking about, giant being. Like, this is gonna be my girlfriend." um, but I still got the message in it, and it was extremely clear. And I had this like insight that I was in the presence of a divine feminine aspect. I didn't know any definition or anything, but I felt like I was in this divine feminine aspect. So in my awareness, I asked to be shown the divine masculine. I was like, oh, if this is the divine feminine, I'd love to perceive the divine masculine. And in that moment, inside of my vision scape, my vision took like a 180 degree of my vision, and behind me was this man, and his skin was, it was the same type of setup, but his skin was all blue. It was like this bending laser blue. And mind you, I was like the size of like a needle point to these beings. I was extremely small. Their faces and their bodies were enormous. It was like mountains in front of me. I was just this little speck of consciousness in front of them on a trip. And he was sitting in a lotus meditation position, a very strong one, where his hands were on his knees, his shoulders were broad and forward, sitting very proud, and his eyes were white and blue, and they emanated a sharp blue, piercing blue, where her eyes were like this, like it was like kind of like moving away, like if like liquid was like pouring out horizontally around her. I don't know. It's so hard to describe, but his was more piercing and blue and focused. And I was just taken on this ride. I saw above his shoulders, on his shoulders, he was holding a structure. And my vision just started going up this structure, and it looked like a skyscraper, like a stone skyscraper. But inside of every window was an image of a man having an experience. And it was all of these different qualities of coming into divine masculine, like courage and bravery and strength and sacrifice. And as I peered into these different windows, the only way I could describe them, I was getting like the emotional download and the intellectual download of these experiences that were also visually happening in front of me in these windows. And that experience was one of many, profound experiences, but that one always stuck with me because it was just so clear and it was so meaningful. And I'll tell you what, the being was right. I did not end up with that girl. you know
Wow,
so yeah, she
man.
was right, and it was beautiful, and that's just one of many. But I just wanted to share another story with you, so that anybody who stumbles upon our work can know that there really is so much more to our human experience. We don't have to define it right now. We don't have to say what it is that we've experienced. We don't have to put a period on it where it's like this is what it was. Just know that there are these extravagant, immense, immaculate experiences that offer you enormous growth. It's not just like you're on a roller coaster ride and after you get off, you're like, oh, that was fun. Maybe I'll get back on it. I mean, for some people, that is the case for sure, like recreational drugs and things like that. For sure, they go on their ride, they have a good time. But when you're using the plant medicines, the sacred, items that are here for us on earth, to help us in our growth, when you go through these experiences, you're never the same. You're never the same as you were beforehand. You have changed. You can never look at the world again the way you used to. And it's not just having like these profound visual experiences, or being taken on a ride. It can be even more powerful just by having the weight taken off of your heart and having the weight taken out of your mind. And for you to be able to see the world and feel the world clearly, more so than you have maybe in your entire life. And that's what's waiting for people who choose to take these routes. And I'm not telling anybody, or recommending that you do. If you're called to it, then that's what's there for you. And you can also experience these levels of consciousness through meditation, through deep meditation, and a dedicated practice of energy meditation, like combined with stilling the mind and coming into awareness, and then evoking the experience of love within yourself, and allowing that frequency to take your mind on a journey of growth, and for you to recognize old patterns and old memories, and for you to bring healing into yourself. So I want to thank you, Todd, for having that courage too, to share an ayahuasca experience. These are very fringe concepts right now for the mainstream. A lot of people aren't ready to accept this, especially people in organized religion and very rigid mentality. But the fact of the matter is that it's there,
Yeah,
and I just thank you for sharing that.
absolutely. That was beautiful. Experience sounds like you had. Beautiful story. And it is a shame that everything under the sun was lumped under the drug war and stigmatized. And it is a blessing that science is studying meditation and studying these plants and showing the neurogenesis, the creating new brain cells from psilocybin, how it creates new neural connections and new pathways for breaking out of old habits. And people who it calls to are using that to break free of addictions or even habitual thinking and thought patterns.
Yeah.
And we live in an incredible time of information, and it's really great to see that more people are learning about it and having access to it. So it's you know a really a new age is coming. It feels like.
Yeah. And, just to go off of that, it's true that we are coming into a new age, and there's even like institutes and government funded organizations right now that are dedicated. I don't know if you're familiar with MAPS, maps.org, for anybody who's interested in a
Hmm.
really well funded and scientific approach to this. MAPS is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. I was fortunate to meet with some of the MAPS members in the beginning of my journey at a conference. They were founded in 1986, actually. So they've been around for a while. And there's the Monroe Institute in Virginia, which is dedicated to aspects of consciousness and meditation and astral travel, hemisync, aligning the hemispheres of your brain through sound waves. So, and the other side of it, that's that's for like the left brain folks, for them to have something that they can grab onto that's like, okay, so this is like, what would you say, like credited people, like they're these are degreed scientists, these are, the people that have studied this, and their logical conclusions are meaningful. And then on the other side of it, the right brain folks, that's us doing the groundwork, the deep spiritual practice, not needing any blueprint, but seeking fearlessly and sharing fearlessly. And then what a lot of people may not realize, but through sharing, through doing this work, we ourselves get to experience evolution. We ourselves are taking the next steps in our growth by being downloaded and shown the ways to help heal others. And then we get to carry that healing in our journey everywhere we go. So, for anybody who's brand new to this or anybody who's been in it for a long time, you're not alone. There's so much love out there. There's so many people like Todd, like myself, that more than anything in the world, we want you to know who you are so that we can share in this world together. Todd, is there anything that you would like to promote? I know we promoted your Instagram, Todd Perel, TODDPEREL on Instagram, eastwesticism.org, the Aloneness to Oneness documentary, and all the work that you do. Is there anything that we missed? I know you said that you have a book coming out soon.
Yes, that's perfect. Eastwesticism.org is where they can find all the resources to our YouTube videos and our blogs and our new videos and the book coming out. And yeah, that's really it. We'll be updating as we have more information about the book launch. And yeah, just Sean, thank you so much for what you're doing. I'm loving it and love you, man.
Yeah, Todd, I love you too. And I want to just ask you one more question, one more beautiful response from you, Todd, right now. If you could tell everyone in the world one thing right now, if you could tell everyone one message or give one sentiment of self to everyone, what would you say if the whole world was listening?
I would say that we take our lives so seriously. We try to control every aspect, and yet our heart pumps without any control of ourselves. It just does it automatically. Our lungs breathe even when we're sleeping. Our blood flows. And I really think that's the way of the universe. And we can let go of expectations and feeling things should be a certain way. And the universe, like our heart, will move forward, will stay in balance without our tight grip we think we have on our future. And to just trust that everything will work out because it always does. And no matter how dark it looks, it will change. And because that is the nature of the universe is change. There's no stagnation. And just do your best to open yourself to the world and accept whatever comes, and it'll be beautiful.
I truly feel like I am speaking with myself. I love the way that you articulated that. I'm honored to have you as my very first guest here on Monk on the Mountain. Thank you for coming down from the mountain, from the forest where you spent 50 days to share your growth and for having the courage to put yourself out there. I know it's going to be, I know it already has been so rewarding for you, and it will continue to be. And the work that you do is priceless, and it is the most important work happening on this earth right now. So I want to honor you from my heart. Blessings to you in your journey. Thank you for honoring us with your attention and with your messages and all the work that you do. Namaste, my friend. And I'm looking forward to communicating with you and talking to you in the future.
Namaste. Blessings. Thanks, Sean.
All right, everybody. Well, you heard it here. Todd Perilmuter, here to save the world in his own way. You could check him out at eastwestism.org. Check out his YouTube videos. Give him a like, give him a subscribe, upgrade your life, use the tools that you have available. Love yourself, love everybody around you, and it's going to come back times a billion. I love you guys. I'll see you guys on the next episode. May you have the best day of your life.